Hi, good evening. Happy Monday, everybody. I'm Anna, and this is
Paul.
And we're from Knoll Parish Church. Right now, we're live from the kitchen. I hope you've had a good day and a good weekend. Our boys, Jacob and Caleb, went back to school today, and
Yes. Oh no.
I miss them.
I miss them.
Paul enjoyed going into work. It was. They did really well, so really proud of how well they got on. They've been slight tinkerish going to bed tonight, but we will forgive them. Tonight's question is: are you praying for the government? Slightly strange question, maybe. Slightly strange ask, maybe. Maybe some of you have never even thought about doing such a thing. You might remember a few weeks, maybe months, don't know, all the time seems to blur, when Boris was poorly. He contracted COVID and he went into hospital, and he needed our prayer. And not just Boris didn't need our prayer just for his physical healing at the time, but he was actually being treated by some Christian nurses and doctors. So lots of people rallied around to pray for his spiritual healing. Now, we don't know what happened. We don't know if he is now saved. It would be great to think he is. But we can continue to pray for that. And it's something that we are called as Christians to do, to pray for our government, especially in times like this, not just with COVID, but with the Black Lives Matter rallies that have gone on, especially those that unfortunately have been less peaceful than the one in Birmingham, which, proud to say, was peaceful. But unfortunately there have been riots in London and Bristol that have led to people being injured. So it would be good to think about how can we pray for our government. So today we're going to read from Acts 22, starting at verse 21.
Then the Lord said to me, that's Paul, "Go, I will send you far away to the Gentiles." The crowd listened to Paul until he said this. Then they raised their voices and shouted, "Rid the earth of him, he's not fit to live." As they were shouting and throwing off their cloaks and flinging dust into the air, the commander ordered that Paul be taken into the barracks. He directed that he be flogged and interrogated in order to find out why the people were shouting at him like this. As they stretched him out to flog him, Paul said to the centurion standing there, "Is it legal for you to flog a Roman citizen who hasn't even been found guilty?" When the centurion heard this, he went to the commander and reported it. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "This man is a Roman citizen." The commander went to Paul and asked, "Tell me, are you a Roman citizen?" "Yes, I am," he answered. Then the commander said, "I had to pay a lot of money for my citizenship." "But I was born a citizen," Paul replied. Those who were about to interrogate him withdrew immediately. The commander himself was alarmed when he realized that he had put Paul, a Roman citizen, in chains. The commander wanted to find out exactly why Paul was being accused by the Jews. So the next day he released him and ordered the chief priests and all the members of the Sanhedrin to assemble. Then he brought Paul and set him before them.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
So, what ways and how can we pray for our government? I'm going to suggest 4 ways. Number 1, pray for a government that protects the innocent. In verse 2, in these verses, Paul was an innocent man and really needed protection, and he got that from the soldiers in Rome. Early in the chapter, there was a bloodthirsty mob of Jews who quietened down long enough to listen to Paul's testimony. But when he started talking about the Gentiles again, they got a little bit angry again. So first of all, pray for a government that protects the innocent. Secondly, pray for a government that is prompt to admit mistakes. I'm going to admit a mistake. It's actually 3 things. 3 things I'm going to talk about tonight. So, praying for a government that protects the innocent, praying for a government that is prompt to admit mistakes. That was in verse 29, so at the beginning, near the end of what we read. So a government that admits mistakes. Now that is a tough one to do, especially for people in authority, but it's something that we can pray for a government that would put their hands up and say that they have done wrong, and admit that in front of millions of people. And thirdly and finally, praying for a government that performs in obedience to the law. So verses 29 and 30 of what we read this evening. So a government that's not only protecting the innocent and admitting mistakes, but also performing in obedience to the law. Fortunately, most of the time, our government are doing that, and that is a good thing. A good thing for us to say. There are governments other than our own throughout the world who are much more corrupt, and maybe we could think about some police force who unfortunately are maybe not performing in obedience to the law that's been on the news recently. How we can pray for those people, praying for the government, praying too for the innocent who are maybe at the hands of these maybe not so innocent government. So we would urge you over the next few days to pray for our government, pray for Boris and his party, pray for the Queen, pray for the police force in this country as well, and for those who are also in law and order. So those three things again: pray for a government that protects the innocent, pray for a government that is prompt to admit mistakes, and pray for a government that performs in obedience to the law. So thanks for listening tonight, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Have a nice evening.
Bless you.
Bye.